Shipping. In the context of fandom culture, shipping as defined by dictionary.com is to take an interest in or hope for a romantic relationship between two fictional characters. A popular thing to do for many ships is to imagine the pairing in a alternate universe, aka an AU. What if your OTP worked at a coffee shop together, or they were characters in another fictional work? Today, I'll be doing just that by drawing my OTP in a few different AUs and exploring all the parallel but different circumstances that bring my OTP together. But what is my OTP, you may be asking? The ship that rules all ships inside my mind. And the answer is... Balder and Prometheus, aka Damien and Julius. Who are these characters? I've never heard of them. You're probably asking yourself, and you would be right to ask that because they are not from any book, show, movie, or game. They are from my brain. Which means they would actually be a OCTP, but considering how I think of them more than any other ship out there, they deserve the title of my OTP. What can I say? However, since I know only like 7-ish people know their lore, let me give you a quick rundown, or at least the quickest rundown that I can. Balder, aka Damien, is a serious man who is lighthearted and a bit goofy underneath it all. He is pretty much forced into some type of leadership position he doesn't want, but does out of obligation, sacrificing his own happiness for the sake of others. Julius, aka Prometheus, is a man who is comical but plays it up more than he actually is, hiding his more cynical nature. He lies about his intentions to keep the peace, even if it guarantees his own suffering. When the two first meet, both find the other a nuisance, a bother. They go through what I can best describe as Looney Tunes shenanigans, running around after each other and trying to outdo the other and mess with him, but never anything malicious. They view the other as someone who doesn't understand what he's going through. They get to know one another and realize that they actually have a lot in common and become really good friends. And 9 out of 10 times, a romantic relationship between the two is formed. Though it takes them a bit to get there. They make a promise to each other to live for themselves together. Basically, I want to be free from my self-inflicted chains, and I want to live this freedom with you. 9 out of 10 times, however, a tragic event happens that keeps them from this. It separates them and puts them in a low point. Eventually, they find each other again and can fulfill this promise they made to each other. Overall, their presence betters the other and gives him the courage to act in a way that is true to himself and not in a way only to please others. Hopefully that isn't too vague and you get some idea on how these two function as individuals and as a pair. Honestly, I could have gone more in depth on their lore, but every time I tried to do so, the script for this video got insanely long and rambly. So if you want more information on the two, I really recommend checking out this video I did a while back that goes a bit more in depth about them, as well as some other characters and the story that they're all in. But yeah, with all that out of the way, let's get on to the art. I'm going to be honest with you all. I am not much of a gamer. I play things that many would consider basic and at the casual level. Things like Splatoon, Pokemon, and when I play things outside of the big Nintendo properties, it tends to be niche games. Moon RPG, anyone? But there is one type of game that I've become a fan over recent years. And that is the farming simulator. And by that, I mean Stardew Valley. I really love Stardew Valley, though I am slowly branching out to other games in the same genre. I was first introduced to the game via Switch and fell in love with it, and in 2022, I bought it on Steam because I was curious about how different the PC version was from the Switch's. And the first save I made on this copy of Stardew, I made Damien. He lives on Tax Evasion Farm, and he has a cat named Lala. Speaking of Farmer Damien, how does this Stardew AU play out? Well, it all starts out when one terribly stormy night, when Harvey wakes to a banging on the medical clinic's door. He finds Linus on the other side, carrying an unconscious man on his back, as he recounts the events in a rasp.
There was a car crash. Drove off the cliff. Car was totaled. I saw the man walk out. Passed out. Didn't know what to do. Brought him here.
Harvey and Linus struggle to carefully place the mystery man in one of the hospital beds in the back. Harvey, scrambling to make sure the mystery man isn't in critical condition, fails to notice Linus walk back into the rain. Harvey alerts Mayor Lewis to the situation soon after confirming the patient's status. If this wreck was truly like Linus said, it was a miracle that the mystery man is alive and in such good health. The next morning, Mayor Lewis goes to the scene of the crash and finds the car and everything inside of it totaled, just as Linus said. The only thing Mayor Lewis can retrieve from the scene is part of a business card that reads out the name Damien. He stuffs the scrap of paper in his pocket. A plan is forming in his brain as he walks back to Harvey's. When he gets back to the doctor's office, he locks the door behind him, so only he and Harvey and the mystery man are in the building. Harvey greets the mayor in the lobby. The mystery man is still in the back, unable to hear their conversation. Harvey informs Mayor Lewis that the mystery man has awoken, but seems to have amnesia and is unable to identify himself, and asks the mayor if he found anything at the crash that could help them. Mayor Lewis tells Harvey that he couldn't find anything, but he has an idea that will fix all their problems. The abandoned farm rotting away on the outskirts of town, the town's declining economy, Joja's tightening grip, all of it. Upon hearing the mayor's plan, Harvey protests. They can't do that. That's unethical. Mayor Lewis's plan is basically kidnapping. But Mayor Lewis, being the manipulative bastard that he is, blackmails Harvey into silence. When Mayor Lewis has a plan, nothing gets in his way. The mystery man lays on a hospital bed, his whole body sore. The door opens, and he is greeted by a man in a mustache and cap. He introduces himself as Mayor Lewis and hands him a letter. "Glad you finally woke up," he says. "We were real worried when you hopped off the bus and immediately fainted."
I was on a bus, the mystery man replies. What was I doing there? Where am I?
Mayor Lewis responds, his voice confident, comforting. "There's no need to be worked up. You're in Pelican Town, specifically our medical clinic. You're old Farmer Jenkins' grandson, your mother's father. You came here to finally claim your inheritance on the property he left you and become a farmer like he was. You called me last week telling me about your intentions. The letter I gave you now is the letter he left you. It fell out of your hand when you passed out. You remember, don't you?" There's a pause. It's brief but heavy, but is broken by Damien's words.
I think I do, but it's still also fuzzy. Thank you, Mayor Lewis.
Damien gets out of the hospital bed as he and Mayor Lewis walk out of the building. "Don't thank me. Thank good old Harvey. He's the doctor here in Pelican Town. He's real passionate about the health of the townsfolk, aren't you, Harvey?" Harvey has a strained look on his face as he tries to hide the dread and guilt he feels as he shakes Damien's hand. So, yeah, that's the starting part of this AU. Damien's current life in Stardew is built on a lie told to him by a corrupt politician. Tee-hee-hee. But how does Julius play into this? So in Stardew, there's this mysterious figure in-game known as Mr. Key. You first encounter him after you put a battery pack in the lock box in the tunnel, and Mr. Key's role is basically a challenge provider. He gives you all these different challenges, and they can be hard to do, but you get a lot of cool rewards from them. So in this AU, I'm making Julius replace Mr. Key as the mystery challenge provider. Mr. J, I think he would be called, though unlike Mr. Key, Mr. J isn't some unknowable entity with a security camera room. Mr. J is just a rogue wizard who likes to cause mischief and is determined to bother the man who moved in on his late friend's farm. Such mischief includes, oh no, someone turned one of your eggs into a void egg! What are you gonna do about that? Ooh. The shenanigans Mr. J pulls is enrichment for the both of them, and the rivalry the two have is all in good fun. In this AU, Damien and Julius only get to know each other once Damien starts his new life as a farmer. I have a funny idea though that the two met once before when Damien was a businessman in Zuzu City, and neither of them remember it. I do think after old farmer Jenkins' ghost returning from the grave and shattering Damien's worldview would cause the two to become closer, as Mr. J helps Damien figure out who he really is and where he's from. Though I don't think they would become romantically involved in this AU, as crazy as that is to say, especially when this is a video about drawing my OTP. But the thing about Damien and Julius is that their relationship is built on friendship, and sometimes friendship turns into romantic love, and sometimes not, but that doesn't make the bond the two have any lesser. I also just really like the idea of Julius being a wingman to Damien as he tries to woo whichever marriage candidate I pair him up with. Probably Emily, as I have the most hearts with her currently, and I like the dynamic the two could have. Also, for those who know my OC's lore, Damien getting with a woman who has blue hair is extremely ironic, but I could also see him getting with Elliot instead, as he's very much Damien's type. So yeah, I hope this was a good start, tee-hee-hee, and let's get on to the next AU. Next we have another little indie game. It's rather obscure, you probably never heard of it. It's called Pokemon. It's about this rat with a built-in taser, and he's like a serial killer. Anyways, joking aside, Pokemon, like it is for many people, is a franchise that has stuck with me throughout my whole entire life, and will continue to be a part of my life for the foreseeable future. So it makes perfect sense that something so influential in my life would be a choice for one of the AUs I'm drawing today. But that's not the only reason. There's one more pineapple-y reason for me wanting to draw this OC AU. So, spoiler warning for Scarlet and Violet. If you don't want spoilers on this game, maybe skip to the next segment. But there's this character named Giacomo, and he is one of the bosses for Team Star, specifically the Dark Crew, aka the Seekin Squad. And look, there's no point in beating around the bush. Ever since I first laid my eyes on Giacomo on November 18th, 2022, I just can't unsee the cosmic coincidence of Giacomo looking like a love child between Damien and Julius. You have the physical similarities, such as the hair and the eyes, the way this kid smiles, but also his personality and backstory. To quickly summarize Giacomo lore, for those who don't know, he was the student council president of his school, but he was so serious about the job, he made all these asinine rules, and he got kicked out of the position and was bullied for it. He and some other students made this group called Team Star to stand up to their bullies. Giacomo is known for being fun and rebellious, but also someone who is modest and caring. He actively tries to not put himself in a leadership position, knowing how much he gets into it and how it causes issues for people, making them miserable. Which really parallels Damien, especially because one of Damien's things is being put in leadership positions that he is really good at, but he is absolutely miserable in. I could go more in depth on all the connections I have made in my mind between Giacomo, Damien, and Julius, but I literally wrote a document on that late last year, and that ended up being 7 pages long. So yeah, you can see how dedicated I am to this little headcanon of mine. Damien and Julius in this AU are Giacomo's parents. Like I said earlier in the video, most of the time these two have a period where after they make that promise of self-improvement together, they get separated and there's all this angst before they get reunited. This is one of the times that does not happen and everything works out without a hitch. My idea is that Damien was the unwilling champion of some unnamed region, gaining the position after beating the former corrupt champion and staying in the position out of obligation. Julius is a traveling performer, specifically a clown, and one day when Damien is traveling about the region he's a champion of, he comes across Julius, and the two just hit it off on the wrong foot. Pretty much from that point onward, the two are having daily Pokemon battles, with Damien always winning. And over time, they go from antagonizing one another to being friendly rivals, to just friends. And one day, it looks like Julius is going to win the Pokemon battle. But then he very obviously sabotages himself, so he loses. After this, Damien takes Julius to the side, and the two have a private conversation on why he did that. Julius's reasoning being that although he's always longed to be taken seriously as both an actor and Pokemon trainer, certain events in his life has always prevented himself from doing that, so he just finds it easier to play the part of a fool, and appease others in that way. And if he beat Damien that day, he feels like it would ruin the charade he has so carefully put together. And Damien, a man who has had to sacrifice so much of his own passions and self-expression in order to maintain his championship position for the sake of others, relates to Julius a lot because of that. So with Julius's support, Damien steps down as champion, Julius starts to pursue more serious acting roles, and the two move to Paldea, where Damien gets a job as a meteorologist. And the two, they eventually get married. Giacomo was born. They later adopt a kid named Moroka, who is just my stand-in for the player character in Scarlet Violet. It's all good, yippee, heart, smile. Moving on quickly to the art, you can tell it's a bit different from the previous piece because unlike the last one, being just 2 character designs, in this segment I'm drawing an illustration. It's just a family portrait slash redraw slash sequel of this older piece, which looking at it now makes me want to shrivel and wither inside. The context for this piece is that, you know, at the end of the Starfall Street storyline in Scarlet Violet, where Clavel is like, "Okay, kids, To make up for playing hooky and all your tomfoolery, I want you to keep doing Team Star, but have it be part of the school's curriculum as part of a special program or community service or whatever. Well, in my brain, this photo is taken on the day this new direction for Team Star starts, as kind of a celebratory family thing. Which brings me to some of the final things I wanted to mention for this AU. Yes, Damien and Julius were aware of their son having issues at school, and try as they might, they were unable to get the school to do anything about the bullying. So when Giacomo and the rest of Team Star finally stood up to the bullies, Damien and Julius were proud of their son, but they were also very sad it got to that point. When Giacomo was skipping school to wait for Cassiopeia to return, I wouldn't say the two were supportive, they were more like just understanding. They had the expectation that Giacomo had to be doing something productive with all his newfound free time. Are Damien and Julius the best parents? Probably not, but they try to be understanding of their kids and what they want to do in life, even if that ends up with them being a little too lax. I also realized that even though this is a Pokemon AU, I didn't really draw Pokemon that Damien and Julius would use, and apologies for that. Damien, being a meteorologist, he uses a lot of flying, electric types. I also see him using steel and maybe some fairy types. He would definitely be a rain team user and take advantage of Thunder's 100% accuracy in the rain. As for Julius, he's drawn to having psychic, fire, poison, and dragon type Pokemon. Pokemon that are just quirky and would be perfect in showbiz, even if a bit unconventional. And battling-wise, Julius would be the type to use a whole variety of different strategies, mainly things like trick rooms and setting up sweeps in really strange and contrived ways. So yeah, there's this piece done, and that's it for the Pokemon Julius AU. I think out of all of the AUs I've drawn in this video and will draw, this one is the most self-indulgent since I'm merging canon with my own OC stuff, but it brings me a lot of joy. So for the next AU, it's another video game. Maybe I'm slightly more of a gamer than I thought. Actually, wait, scratch that thought, because even though it's a game I really love, I haven't played it consistently in months. And that game is Toontown Corporate Clash. For those of you who do not know, Toontown Corporate Clash is a private server that, in their own words, is a free-to-play fan-hosted recreation of Disney's Toontown Online. It's not a one-to-one recreation, however, of the OG Toontown Online, as it added stuff like a new gag track and a whole bunch of new boss fights. I got into the game late 2022 as a way to hang out and connect more with my online friends, and I've fallen in love with the game and its community since then. A lot of nice and incredibly talented people. One of those being my friend Travis, aka Cynical6, who is not only one of the people responsible for getting me into Toontown Corporate Clash, but indirectly is kind of responsible for this AU I'm drawing today. Long story short, we were in this open legend campaign with some of our other friends, and my character for it happened to be Damien. And a quick Damien tidbit here is that I associate him with thunderstorms, and both in the story that I have written for him and in this campaign, he had lightning and rain, storm powers. So with that context, when one day Trav was like, here's this list of what all of our player characters' names would be if they were cogs in Toontown in the campaign's Discord server, for Damien, they came up with Shockbroker. Get it? Like shock, electricity, stockbroker. Anyways, it was this message from Trav that catapulted me into thinking about Damien and eventually Julius in a Toontown corporate clash AU. To the point where, on my very niche corner of the internet, especially on the Toontown side of Twitter, some people only know the two from all the Toontown AU art I've made of them. Part of me drawing this AU so much is definitely fueled by the fact that Damien's cog design, aka Shockbroker, is literally just an alt design I have for him in this story that he's in, but I never draw him this way because it's spoilers for said story, but it's whatever. I'm glad I get to draw a version for it for this AU Smile. Speaking of, let me actually talk about this AU for a second. The Damien and Julius Toontown AU isn't anything too out there, especially if you're someone who knows anything about Toontown. This does follow corporate clash lore though, and Julius's toon design is absolutely inspired by the axolotl design seen in Toontown Event Horizon, which is a Toontown private server that is still in development. So if you're more familiar with Rewritten or any other Toontown server, apologies. Julius is a toon. He's an actor who also performs as a clown on the side. And Damien is, well, a cog with the work title of Shockbroker. He's specifically an EXE in the board bot department. The two met after Damien ruins a performance Julius was doing in Toontown Central with his rain powers, and the two start off with a strong animosity for the other. But over time, the two gain some common ground as they both find out they feel like outliers in their respective groups. Julius is a toon who longs for serious acting roles, but is only known for his comedy routines. And Damien is a cog who feels out of place in a world run by corporate greed. The two start meeting up in secret on account of the whole toon versus cogs thing, and definitely nothing bad ever happens to either one of them ever. And that's the rundown of the Toontown Corporate Clash AU, which is strangely enough the most similar to how their actual dynamic plays out in the canon I have. It just happens over a much shorter period of time. I know this one's a bit out there as not a lot of people know about Toontown online, let alone Corporate Clash, but I still hope you enjoyed it. I sure did. Breaking the video game streak, we have the My Little Pony AU, specifically Gen 4, aka My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, as that's the generation I'm most familiar with, especially as I have been slowly rewatching the show. Out of all of these, this AU is definitely, I think, the least complicated. In this AU, Damien, wait, that's not really a pony name, Thunderstrike? Yeah, that should work. Thunderstrike works at the Cloudsdale Weather Factory and has a pretty high position there. As his name implies, his special talent is thunderstorms, but specifically ones that are very quick and very intense. Lots of lightning and thunder. One day, Thunderstrike gets in a workplace accident and messes up one of his wings. He falls to the surface, conveniently lands on a train car full of hay. He's rendered unconscious by the fall and only wakes up when the train reaches its final destination, the outskirts of the Dragonlands. With his wing still injured and no cash on him, Thunderstrike has the Herculean task of getting back home. While figuring out what to do, he ends up meeting a dragon by the name of Prometheus, who, against Thunderstrike's wishes, vows to help the Pegasus pony find his way back home. From there, it kind of plays out like trains, planes, and automobiles, but gay, as the more the two travel together, the closer they become. Prometheus sharing how, among dragons, he is shunned for his small size, despite being a fully grown dragon, and only being able to breathe fire with his eyes closed because of his light sensitivity. But he has hope that once in Equestria he could fulfill his dream and become an actor and comedian beloved by all. And it's during this journey that Thunderstrike starts to realize his job at the Cloudsdale Weather Factory isn't where he's meant to be. Like I said, this AU isn't that complicated, neither is the art. I did struggle a little bit when it comes to drawing Thunderstrike. I've always struggled with stallions. Like, their head shapes are always just really hard for me to draw for some reason. I was also really worried that his wings would come out looking weird. Pegasus wings were also something I struggled with when I was younger. I remember one time when I was like 12 or 13, I was drawing a Pegasus pony while waiting for school to start. The school I was at, they would make us wait in the gym in the morning. So I was sitting on the bleachers when this girl behind me, who was a year ahead of me and also a artist slash MLP fan, said something like, "You're drawing the wings wrong. That's not how you draw Pegasus wings," in this condescending tone, and I was so embarrassed. I didn't draw Pegasus ponies for a long time after that. As for Prometheus here, it was a lot easier for me to draw him, though I will admit after I got done recording, I went back and did a fair bit of tweaking to the both of them, and that's it. I like how this one came out, even if it's not at all complicated. It was a blast getting to draw something that my younger self would have really enjoyed. After drawing all of these AUs, I do admit this video was a bit out there, really self-indulgent even compared to some of my other stuff I've made, and a bit all over the place, but that can happen when you're talking about a topic you're really passionate about. Did you have a AU in this video that was most interesting to you? Do you like thinking about your OCs or your favorite ships in AUs? I always get so excited when people talk about their OCs or other stuff, creative things in the comments. So feel free to write about all of that in the comments below. I would love to read them all. Smile. And with all of that, I wish you the best and stay safe out there. Bye-bye.